during meeting today, which is really exciting. We're starting to gain some momentum. Really thrilled to hear about how things are going across Telcoin network from the exchange perspective on that existing TELIP and some other high-level proposals for the Platform and Treasury Council to consider, as well as any ideas that the community wants to come up and share. So agenda-wise, I'll just start off as per usual with an intro and an overview of what these councils are. Then we'll do a brief recap of last meeting. Then I'm going to hand it over to Grant to give us a little update on Telcoin network development. And then SquirTEL, if you're open to it, would love to have you give us an update on exchange listings and where that stands, and any policy prescriptions you have for us moving forward so that we can implement that. And then we'll have the TIP update that's related to the TAO and TA services agreements. I'll just kind of walk through what those are and when you should expect them. And then there's actually another TIP from SteveO, crypto SteveO, related to email domains for the council members. And we've been working in parallel to figure out a way to implement that for everyone. I think it's a great idea, and we'll be discussing it a little bit. Hopefully SteveO's here. If not, we can just go through his proposal and add our thoughts. And then upcoming proposal ideas, anything else people have to share that cover the TELIP and TIP domain, the platform-wide systems and policies, both social policies as far as the TIPs are concerned. These proposals are just platform council proposals, which alter social policies at the global level. So this can be anything from communication and information to association policies, so long as they don't involve TEL. If they involve TEL or Telcoin network, once it's live with 10 validators, then those proposals are TELIPs. They're financed by the TEL Treasury to plan, construct, maintain systems, and to allocate TEL issuance from its primary source throughout the platform. And so I'll just kind of jump in high level. What are these meetings? They serve really critical functions for us. We're this global internet native communal governance institution for a blockchain network and its native token. And so we're all over the world. We all have ideas that we want to share so we can improve this system and the way that we allocate benefits within it. So these enable us to tie the keyboard, word processing oriented proposals that are on the forum and in Discord, sometimes on Twitter, and tie them to an actual communication, structured bi-weekly communication with the actual council members who vote on those. So they provide transparency to the community. They enable us to connect the proposal process to an actual discussion with people, and so that we can discuss, debate, deliberate, refine, and then ultimately propose, vote, and approve these proposals with consensus. They enable us to provide regular platform updates in terms of how the system is functioning. It enables us to obtain information about the interests and preferences of the folks that we represent, which is the entire association of members across all four minor groups. Importantly, they give us a forum for consistent communication amongst the council members and the community, including direct engagement through Q&A. And so the councils that are actually up here today and that are governing at the platform-wide level, this sort of global governance layer for the Telcoin platform, include the Platform Council, which has 8 members, and the Treasury Council, which has 4. The Treasury Council votes on TELIP proposals related to the Telcoin Treasury, and the Platform Council initiates those proposals and also uses the TIP process to change social policies within the association. Our key responsibilities, these are duties that we have to undertake as part of our role. These include reviewing and voting on snapshot proposals for TIPs or TELIPs, depending on which council you're in. Attending these bi-weekly meetings, these are mandatory, and providing regular community updates, monitoring platform systems, and then ultimately enforcing the rules are also duties of these councils. And so we have a few different communication systems. I know this is redundant, but I think it's important that we just continue to provide visibility into how this stuff works. So we have this Discord here for day-to-day comms between the community of miners and the councils. the Telcoin forum for informal proposal discussions, these recurring council meets, and then ultimately Snapshot we use for voting. All this is described, defined, specified on the telcoin.org website, as well as in the TGIP1 proposal that we unanimously as a community approved last year. And my last part that I'll go through is just a quick meeting recap from last week. So we discussed first Telcoin Association's first mover advantage as a legal entity for governing blockchains in terms of the existing unregistered associations for governing these systems have no legal entity structure, and as a result of Samuels versus Lido DAO, that really highlights our first mover advantage versus unstructured DAOs, and in terms of limited liability protection, legal recognition, and all the great things that come with having an actual legal entity in the real world. 500 years of case law drew us to that conclusion, that we needed a legal entity that was suitable to this structure for governance. And now we're positioned, because virtually everyone else has gone the alternative route, as a real first mover, so we can interact in the real world, have limited liability protections for our members, and so that's really exciting. We had a really also another exciting update from Telcoin Network, which included open sourcing the code base, and and some vibrant discussions surrounding the existing TELIP proposal and some other proposals as well, related to comms and marketing. And from here, I just want to hand it off to Grant to discuss Telcoin Network, any updates that they have to share with the community, and then we'll go through the rest of the agenda.
Alrighty, so for the Telcoin Network update, I just want to clarify, like last meeting, I think we're all in agreement that the repo needs to be open source. So I spent this past 2 weeks kind of accumulating a checklist and working through some of those things in order to open source it. Again, one of the biggest hang-ups is just ensuring that we're not exposing our infrastructure, our networking deployment infrastructure to just open source repos. So we have some integration tests just to make sure that the faucet, for instance, is working, and that sort of thing. So we do have a little bit of technical debt to sort of restructure that so that we can still run the tests without exposing ourselves to any sort of financial risk and abuse once we open source the repo. But other progress, so we've got the Gossip network implemented for nodes to basically track consensus in real time. So as validators are creating blocks and certificates and extending the canonical tip, they're also gossiping that out to any sort of peer that is interested in tracking that. So that sort of led to some network updates. Right now, for testnet, for instance, when the deployment, in order to get kind of out the door and off the ground, we're using a library called Anemo. And so after kind of reviewing the protocol and the different libraries out there, Steve and I are really confident about moving forward with libp2p. It's just a more robust framework. It's got a ton of protocols that we can use that are really helpful. It's mature. It's got a large open source community. It's production ready. So I'm in the process of implementing new features using libp2p, but we're to the point now where it just makes sense to replace Anemo as well for the peer-to-peer consensus network traffic. Basically, when we're trying to reach consensus, we've been using Anemo. Now we're going to use libp2p. That's kind of the short-term agenda. I also want to share that there's a really exciting bridge update. So Axelar approved our submission last night. So we are officially whitelisted. The Adiri testnet is able to is onboarded with their testnet. So Marcus, I know he's not here, but he's really excited. He's done a lot of great work for that. So moving forward, we'll be able to implement and actually test bridging from Sepolia to Adiri between the testnets. So it's a huge step for us. We've been working really closely with their team, and excited to finally get that all squared away. So the last update I have is just more or less like a heads up that we started the process of forecasting some security audit costs for 2025 in order to launch mainnet. I've been working with one of the security experts I'm familiar with to kind of like just look at it, and we've got some real numbers and some real leads. So for the most part, the biggest I think security considerations that we have are the smart contracts and the infrastructure that we're using right now, specifically like the block explorer that a lot of our community members might use to submit and process transactions, as well as some of the smart contracts that are fundamental to not only bridging but staking and just validator onboarding as well. So, all in all, I think this is a rough estimate with today's numbers. And I have this much more broken down, but I think it's we're looking at close to 500,000 US dollars to cover everything from smart contract audits, blockchain explorer audits, infrastructure audits, 10% for contingency bounties, as well as like protocol for public facing endpoints and networking. So those are kind of like hefty numbers, but this would include some of the great leaders in the industry. This would be more than one audit, so we'd have lots of eyes on this, and this is something that I'll be sharing soon. With this document, it's just in a Google Doc. I need to like actually put it on the forum now. So yeah, that's my update for Telcoin Network.
That's great.
Is
So
any
you're
questions? Yeah.
expecting, so basically you're expecting that, at a high level, everyone, these blockchains, they secure our ownership on the internet. And so having them be, open source, really important. People need to verify what they're using to store their actual, ownership, their property online. Property is going to move from being delegated to other people to us all owning our own things and directly accessing markets. And so having the code, A, be open source is critical, and then B, be secure. I mean, if you have all of your money on a system that's insecure, I don't think you'd sleep very well. I certainly wouldn't. And so we're a security and compliance first company in many ways, and that certainly applies here. I think, that's how many audits do you expect, Grant, in total?
Uh, I would guess. Let's see. I mean, just in those parts alone. I mean, with the smart contracts, we want like the industry standard best practice is usually three per contract. So that alone, we're looking at like six. I think the Block Explorer audit and like sort of like uh, for that sort of infrastructure, where it's deployed, and just that sort of penetration testing for that. I think 1 to 2. Infrastructure audits also like 1 to 2 potentially. The protocol audit, where I think is where we might be able to leverage, since it's a permission to like validator network. There is some sort of protection and governance where we will know validators who are participating in the network, where if somebody's like clearly abusing um, validate where if there's a validator acting maliciously, it's going to be very obvious who it is and what happened. In that case, there is like social governance that could step in for that sort of thing. But for anything that's public facing and outside, I think it's critical that we get like hopefully more than one audit for those things. So yeah, basically, I mean, I would wager somewhere between, well, I think that we should have at least like uh, three for each of the contracts. That would be registry contracts and the bridging contracts. So there's six. The blockchain explorer, that's another two. And with the infrastructure audits, I think that could also be another two. So around 10. And that's not including the protocol stuff. The protocol audit, I don't have as much information or as much insight onto. I know there's some people who have there's some companies that worked with Sue that might be relevant. I think Aptos Network, any of their security auditors might be like a decent carryover, at least like similar concept with the consensus side, and as well as like Sigma Prime, which is another who implemented Ethereum's Lighthouse, which is a consensus client for Ethereum beacon chain. So I think that those audits, those auditors, I would be happy to work with. I think that they were solid, but I don't have exact quotes for that. So for the protocol side.
And so that'll be a part of a TELIP proposal that you're currently crafting.
Yes, basically for funding for 2025, I'm going to include like I'm doing my best to forecast all the associated costs with Telcoin network and getting domain net, development expenses, running servers right now for testnet. The team is like it would be very nice to have a dev net. Maybe that isn't as like with just like a minimum of 4 nodes so that we're Byzantine fault tolerant, but something that like another playground where we can just build and crash. It's not as quite as robust and um, um, as like the Adiri testnet, right? Because the testnet we don't want to come up and down. A DevNet is a lot more flexible. We can break it if we and just sort of test before we go to testnet, and then testnet is obviously before we go mainnet. So
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, in the primary function of the platform treasury councils and governance more broadly is to plan and finance infrastructure development and maintenance, and to regulate the use of TEL issuance throughout the platform for miners to harvest. So this falls squarely within TELIP authority, and via the TEL treasury we have a mechanism for financing these types of endeavors, and that they'll require that we have 6 out of 8 platform council members approved, and then 4 out of 4 treasury council members approved. And so that means that first off, guys, it's really important who you elect. Second off, everyone's voice across each of the minor groups is critical. There's required 100% quorum, so all the council members need to vote on a given proposal for it to go through. And as evidenced before, based off of the 6 out of 8 and then the 4 out of 4, every minor group has to approve the TELIP for it to go live, and that's critical. So thank you, Grant. Does anyone have any high-level questions for Grant and the Telcoin network development team?
I just messaged with Uku, and I was hoping that he might be able to join this afternoon. But yeah, if he ends up popping in, maybe we could revisit the security audit. He's kind of been a really great source of information throughout the process. So Uku, if you are out there, I don't see you, but yeah, be um, happy to
Hello.
hear from you. Hey, there you are. Hello.
Hello. Hello all. That's my first call, so I was already missing that one too. My name is Utku. I'm the head of the information security at Telcoin. So my job is to make sure our system and projects are secure, and we try to do our best to make sure we are following the best practice and fixing any vulnerabilities when we discover it. I work closely with Amir and other engineers, and also compliance and product team to understand their needs and make sure we follow the best security practice. Yeah, Grant, what would you like me to talk about it?
Yes. So I just kind of ran through just briefly, like just some of the high level overview of the proposal that we've got going. So I guess if I was wondering if it'd be possible maybe we could share that. Right now it's on Google Docs. We just need some way to, I think maybe moving it to the forum or something. But
Mhm.
one of the questions that we were trying to that was asked was basically like what is a good number of audits for these different systems and like kind of the industry standard? I kind of spoke to
So,
that, but I'm curious what you would say.
from the regulator perspective, if there is no major change, let's say in that way, in 1 year, at least 2 different audit we should do. So that's the best practice right now, I can say.
Okay.
But
And is
if there
that
is
for
any
like?
kind,
Mhm.
sorry, please go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Uh, so,
If there,
is
if there is a
I'll
major
you go ahead.
change, yeah, if there is a major change, I can say that like a huge infrastructure change, like instead of Google Cloud, if you start to use AWS and if you have a new environment, then after the migration, I would definitely want to see another audit for that migration to make sure that we are reducing the risk. And as you know, even from the beginning, we try to follow the best practice, but there's always chance to we might don't see something. That's why we want to get in a third party audit, external audit. We're also doing, for example, during the migration process, on the AWS side or on the GCP side, we are enabling like automatic checks, like automatically. So for example, you can pick the framework like Nest framework or ISO 27001 or those kind of things. Those automatically, for example, AWS guard duty, those kind of tools automatically checking if you're opening the port where you shouldn't open, those kind of things. So we are basically doing those kind of things, but the most dangerous one, I can say, the logical mistakes. So that's why I definitely want to take a second view what we did, what kind of things we did, and mitigate those kind of things.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the time and energy you've taken to look into this. From just like looking at it from a responsibilities perspective, the Tau is managing, like we're financing through from the first, when the association was established in TELIP 1, I believe, or not TELIP 1, but the Parker, you can correct me, but basically when the governance, when everybody voted to establish this, like we assumed the responsibility to manage the blockchain explorer. And so, that sort of the way that we are, that front end infrastructure, that's something that that the Tau is managing on behalf of the association, that's already been approved. And so like that is something that we definitely should have audited. That I believe that responsibility falls under us. Though now other people can run open source blockchain explorers. That's kind of like, that's not something that we need to concern ourselves with. But the smart contracts that we implemented and coded, and like you point out, the logical, those little gotchas where that can really become big problems. Something that I think with the protocol side that that I think would be worth auditing, that I have not forecasted or yet, would be what could happen if a validator node was hijacked. So basically, the protocol is meant to be run independently by mobile network operators on their own hardware. We are running the testnet ourselves with a group of servers on a cloud platform, and so as that becomes open source and we have more decentralized nodes operating in different mobile network operators, it's very important that they manage their own private keys. But if those private keys were for some reason exposed or leaked, or just someone was able to take over the server, then that becomes a problem now for the other nodes, right? And so that because you now have a malicious actor, and if that mobile network operator, the validator, doesn't realize that this has happened, this bad actor could be signing fraudulent things in their name, voting on bad blocks, trying to create either chaos or even worse, like steal funds through proposing and verifying malicious data. So I think from a protocol side, that is something that I still think would be worth budgeting for in the audit. Is what if we do have some of these bad actors, and ultimately that's like what the whole concept of consensus is supposed to negate, and that's something that I've spent a lot of time. And Steve has spent a lot of time, and Marcus has spent a lot of time on just thinking through and reviewing and assessing and following the industry best practices. But these are the types of security concerns that we are interested in having a third party evaluate and try to break. So.
Thanks, Grand Nuku. That was a detailed explanation, but of critical importance to future operations here, and I think really really necessary to just showcase how important security is when you have these systems on the internet that secure your money. And so that's great. Next, basically as a recap from last week a little bit, we had shared this exchange master doc with the council members. This effectively has every single interaction that we've ever had with exchanges in the past. Historically, we've applied to numerous exchanges, and now we, via collaboration with the commercial team, and after the proposal that Coops led, and then now with SquirTEL sort of leading the process, we have all of the information shared, and we are in the state of implementation, still sort of figuring out what who we need to pay what to ultimately get listed where. And so I'd like to welcome our very own SquirTEL to join the discussion, give us an update as a community on where the exchange listings proposal stands, what we should do to get listed where, and take this proposal to hopefully finalization and approval. So SquirTEL, you want to come up and tell us about your experience with exchanges in the past couple weeks?
Okay, can you guys hear me? I'm getting
Yep.
every other sentence currently.
Oh no, that's not good.
Yeah, so basically, just a quick update then. Crypto.com, the last we heard was they were waiting to receive the documentation. I just wanted to is Justin is connecting me to basically their listing manager, to a different one, see if we can fast track it. Just as an overall, Crypto.com have a new global VP of growth as well. There are a couple of changes being made, I've been told. So there may be some sort of jumping about in the procedures and who's doing what currently. Going from that, please tell me if I'm...
Just lost you for a second, SquirTEL. I just lost you. I think we probably all might have on the audio side. It's kind of bleeping in and out.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was kind of cutting in and out for me too, I think.
What would you think about exiting and then rejoining really quickly to see if that works?
Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. I can hear you.
It's a couple of, yeah. So I'm not sure where you
Justin at
heard.
Crypto.com, they have a new listing, a growth manager, and so there's some opportunity there.
Yeah, so basically, Justin's connecting me to their listing manager who can help try and fast track this a little bit quicker. The last I heard is this aspect now covered, or whereabouts are we from that stage? So Crypto.com have the new global VP of growth manual. And I've been told that there's been a few changes internally within the company of who's doing what. So from that, Justin's now connecting me to who would be the best person. So for exposure-wise, so as I mentioned on the improvement proposal exchange listings on the forum, one of the best to do extremely well across it sounds bad saying mid-tier. They're not mid-tier, they're very good exchanges still. But essentially going from the market leaders to the ones that are just outside of that. From that, one of the best ways as well is if we're looking to focus on mid-tier as well, whilst also continually applying in the application process from the top tier. This side will actually need help from the community as well. So the more views, the more likes, the more awareness and visibility we have out there, the better and more popular everything seems. It sounds silly. Crypto is based on popularity as well. If an exchange is going to list something, they want to see there is demand. It is just a natural process. And from that, we would start to appear on more news. So crypto news sites get that visibility. So we saw a few of the crypto news outlets publishing about the bank hearing as well. Absolutely amazing job. It's when things like that come out, spread, get everything out there. Make sure you're using the correct hashtags or relevant ones, not just including the Telcoin community, but outside. So whether it is crypto news or cryptocurrency or certain different hashtags, there are a variety of on that because it really does help. So yeah, strong community will definitely help showcase this.
And that we have for sure.
Because
so
I
how
know,
do we coordinate, right?
yeah. So I don't know. I know it's in the agenda, but we were issued the emails as well. I know we're going to come back to that later. So this has been set up. That honestly gives correctly. If I'm being introduced to listing managers, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, Adam from Random Thing. We've now got the official emails, the telcoin.org. So that will definitely carry a lot of weight as well. And I think there was something else, but I've completely gone. I'm going through my notes. It'll come back to me in a second. I'll jump in.
So you had OKX and then Crypto.com and Kraken, and we added Coinbase into that bundle, right? It's just our primary targets.
Yeah. So from that, I think we're making. I'd say we're probably making more headway with crypto.com, and that's just from a perspective of people that are speaking, because we know this is one of the latest periods now. We've seen crypto skyrocket, everyone being bombarded with emails, every exchange, everywhere. Even in my work, we're getting just constantly because everyone wants something. So there definitely will be maybe a slight delay in replies, but I would assume we'd still get replies quite quickly. Yeah, so the next stages are continue with contacting Coinbase, with speaking to, or Justin, listing manager, so I can go through that from Crypto.com. Kraken, I'll be honest, I haven't made a headway. I've sent a message and I'm waiting to hear back. So as soon as I do, I can update more. And I can't remember what the last one was. What was 2-3? Yeah. So there is progression. It's naturally not going to happen instantly, but it is like I said last time, it is a little bit of a slower process, but that's not a bad thing. We've all got the connections. I know Rajesh has been speaking in.
What was the last part you said about Rajesh? You cut out.
So with Rajesh, last I heard was he was speaking to a listing manager or something, or someone there was speaking to certain managers, or it was in the forum bit.
Yeah, I think he shared a set of info that we added to the Exchange Master Doc, and
Yeah.
in terms of who needs what at Crypto.com. But it sounds like you kind of have that covered too, and we need to, we need to get that. Like you mentioned, I think the email address
Yeah.
is going to be huge too, and adding an exchange. I think we can't. Before we had talked about doing compliance at telcoin.org as the go-to exchange listing email that would be used for discussions, but that is used by like literal compliance folks who do, sensitive info related to council member IDs and stuff. And so we need to have a different one so that things can be sent to that for exchanges in particular. And so I think that kind of tees up one of the critical proposals that we've been talking about for a communication perspective that Steve put together, which is getting Steve had proposed basically to get numerous different domain names, email addresses. And I think probably the best way to do that, instead of having multiple domains for emails, is to just use telcoin.org, give everyone an optional, the option to get an email address if they would like, and then specific working groups who are focused on, i.e. exchanges like Coops and SquirTEL, should be tied to that specific email. And so, Grant, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I do. I, with Uku's help, we again reviewed a bunch of the workspace settings in anticipation of opening this up to all KYC council members, which that's a redundant statement. All council members are KYC, but basically, following the proposal for crypto SteveO, so I think Steve did a great job writing this all out. The only so I guess one question I had in terms of like the TIP is this proposal is well written, and there's a few things that you've already pointed out that we want to kind of tweak. So, for instance, I think just consolidating all the emails around telcoin.org, because that is the foundation, the Telcoin Association domain, and just having those emails off of that domain instead of lots of different domains. Like when we update that, if we like, what's the process here? What's the best way? Should we post this on the forum to like kind of update that? Does it need to be like completely rewritten? Should we edit the original post so it's kind of like in a final form? Is there somewhere that we post like, okay, this is the proposal that we're voting on now? Because I think the forum is great for the discussion and stuff, but it's not clear exactly like what is the pinpointed proposal. And I guess since it's kind of the first one, that was one question I want to bring up, and then I'll speak more to the email details.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Basically, in terms of SteveO's proposal, since it's on the money in terms of we want to get, in principle, everyone email addresses. It just, there's some slight tweaks. So I think the proper approach is to just reply with, here are the changes that we'd make to the proposal, and then and link to a new proposal that is, because it's, as you said, it's comprehensive, it's really well written, but we would basically change it enough so that it would probably need to be like its own new proposal. So I think that's the best path. But I mean, overall, these questions are for everyone, and I'm curious if that's the best process. As long as we comment on that proposal, say and then here's the new one, because we'll need the full. It's good to have that full space there, but at the same time, I mean, I guess you could just submit a proposal in the comments. That's alternative that's been done too. So
yeah, like just kind of like an addendum or something on the original post, because so like some of the addendums I'd like to like just like basically formalizes the only using telcoin.org. I think that it would make sense to have council groups, and so those are basically, we could have Treasury Council at telcoin.org, and we can add individual users to that group. Utku and I have reviewed like the workspace, so we're pretty sure that in terms of like the process for transitioning council members in and out of the workspace, there's a process in place for that, where basically the association or the workspace administrator would be able to basically take over that account without deleting it. And so there'd be a step where it's like, okay, now it's if there is anything that we need to archive, etc. In that process, as that council member is as we transition council members, I think that that's all set up. I feel good about the multi-factor authentication and strong password policies. Those are also in place. The account management, users can reset their passwords. I think that and we are enforcing the multi-factor authentication now. And let's see. So I think that the other thing was the consistent naming convention with the first dot last name. Like I think that that makes sense. I also think that I could see there being some consideration about, maybe like the last initial instead of your entire last name, if there's some sense of privacy. But I'm not sure how. I mean, my full name is out everywhere, so it's not necessarily a personal concern, but I think it's definitely worth at least hearing from others on any potential concerns there. And then, yeah, the financial considerations are really at the current base level of the workspace that we do have. We can add users for free. We do have a limited amount of Google Workspace Drive space. Our Google Meets for their video platform, it's like there's some limitations there as well. I linked in the original proposal, just like kind of basically that Google Workspace for nonprofits, and we're on the free tier for now. And so I think that we can get most of this. Pretty much all of this proposal complete as it is, if we just use the whatever naming convention at telcoin.org.
Yeah, it's either name. I think it's people will perhaps choose what their domain is, send that into support at telcoin.org or something along those lines, and then
Yeah.
have like you mentioned before, the emails that are if you're in the Treasury Council. The way that you maintain the continuity is by having, if you're a Treasury Council member, and you're communicating on its behalf, having all the replies go to the Treasury Council versus having it go to your own email, so that when, if and when someone is newly elected into your position, you're replaced, we can easily rotate those and still maintain the communication levels. So I think there's probably, yeah, I think we are pretty close to being able to provide a complete proposal here. And yeah, I think we just let people opt into what their naming convention, perhaps, just from a privacy perspective. Looks like Uku has
Yeah.
you jump in.
Yes, I just forgot to mention one thing regarding the companies, the penetration test companies or the auditor or pen test companies. So I just want to give a short info how we pick those companies. When we are picking those companies here, we focus on those with a solid experience working with the European banks. So they know how the finance system is working, how the internal applications are working. They have experience with the top technical team members, like audited what kind of technical members they have, what kind of certification they have in the past, what kind of audit they did. So we basically check those kind of things. But if you guys have any other suggestion, we are absolutely open to checking the other pen test companies, I can say.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great information. And we'll definitely be. I will definitely be talking to you more about that for sure moving forward. And because you have a ton of experience in this area, and I think that yeah, it would be um, in good hands working with you. So I appreciate your help with that, Uku.
Thank you, likewise.
Great. So, all right, and then we have a few other proposals to go through. One is the service agreements between the Telcoin Association and the TAO. So I just want to give a high-level overview of where that stands. It's basically those agreements have been created, and we need to propose them as a TIP proposal for the Platform Council to then approve. Basically the agreement between the TA and the TAO. So I'll just give you a high level description that I wrote out. So these agreements are put in place to facilitate the operational efficiency of the Telcoin Association. Simply put, the Telcoin Association is the brains of this operation. It deliberates, makes decisions collectively, but in order to carry out those decisions, it has this wholly owned subsidiary, Telcoin Autonomous Ops, or the TAO, to implement its decisions. So there's the brain, and then there's the arms, as Tim would put it. And so the TAO could theoretically carry out all of the Telcoin Association's tasks, but or decisions itself, but that's or it could theoretically implement all the things done requested by the TA, but that is quite overwhelming from a resource perspective. And then so it would saddle us with a lot of overhead that would be ultimately on the association, because we need to add new head counts and things like that for specialization, and just to get everything that we want done. And so ultimately its goal, its role in this system is to outsource most of these tasks that the councils determine to third parties that can implement them. Similar to how we're working with SquirTEL now, we're sort of in the preliminary phases of implementing that agency relationship. Though he's done some great work there, we will, once we need to start, for instance, paying someone to finalize these things, or create various different types of policies and plans. We want to make sure we get all those things done, and so the TAO is there to help facilitate those relationships. And so so in order to achieve the above, there's a service agreement between the association and the TAO. And this agreement obligates the TAO to carry out TA's decisions. It also allows and requires the TA to fund the implementation of those decisions. And then likewise, the TAO enters into various service agreements with different service providers who it deems to be the best cost benefit solution to get the work done. And so the first such agreement is between the TAO and Telcoin Holdings PT Limited, which is the developer of the Telcoin wallet, Telcoin Bank, and a member participating as an application developer on the platform. And so these agreements are omnibus. They're not tied to a specific milestone or task. This effectively allows the organization to grow, evolve, and get what it needs without constantly having to enter into new ad hoc agreements. So the process from here is to propose the TIP for approval to the forum, the TAO and TA agreement. And then as part of that TIP, include a draft of the TA and TAO agreement, and other service provider agreements, including the TAO to Telcoin agreement. This gives context of what the TAO does in light of these agreements. And in the TIP, it'll include who will sign on behalf of the Telcoin Association. I'm happy to do that. And then the TIP will also be, part of that. I think this is probably a separate proposal, but when we're operating in the real world with this legal entity, and we want to capitalize on all the benefits of that, we also want to manage it properly in line with the rules set out by different governments that we interact with, such as Swiss regulators. And so it's important to have some sort of admin bookkeeper person for the TAO. This isn't an incredibly expensive endeavor, and it's certainly not when you look at it from a cost benefits perspective. So that will basically need to be a TELIP proposal, is to figure out the admin / bookkeeper for the TAO. And then once the TA approves of the initial TIP agreement, then we can execute it, send those over to compliance, and maintain those copies, and then we'll be in position to get things done. So these agreements are completed, or at least in the final stages. I just need a final approval to post them as a TIP proposal, and then we'll have a vote in front of us. So we have a few different votes in front of us that are exciting and important to our ongoing success and operations. And I want to just kind of open up the floor to anyone who has any additional proposals they want to talk about, any questions that they have for the Platform or Treasury Council. And if any council members have any points they want to get across to the community or info they want to share, that'd be wonderful.
Hi Parker, sorry, a quick question. My internet's also going haywire. I'm not sure what's going on in the UK, but on the exchange master document that was posted, both MEXC and CoinStore are both listed as proposal received. Obviously, we've seen a MEXC proposal. Is there any headway on seeing a listing on Coins?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I saw MEXC listed TEL last week, so that's great. Or was it last week, 2 weeks ago? And then what was the other exchange? Was CoinStore, right?
No.
So has there been any updates to that? I'm not. If there had been, it would be updated in real time on the exchange master doc. And yeah, as anyone who's working on this area, should use that as a live working document to update status as we go. So we need to update the MEXC one, and then as far as CoinStore is concerned, I've heard about that for a while from Rajesh, and it sounds like an exchange that has a lot of potential. I kind of blanking on the specifics. It's not really my area of focus, but yeah, I mean, I will touch base with him, and ultimately we want to get all of that to flow through exchange at telcoin.org to the Platform and Treasury Council members, and then any sort of hands-on day-to-day stuff we want to delegate to an agency or someone who specializes in this. So yeah, nothing with CoinStore, but MEXC is, I mean, I don't know if that's tier 1, but it seems like it's pretty big. I've never used it, but yeah, it's an exciting one.
Just to kind of I guess since we're wrapping up, I'm planning to follow up with Crypto SteveO's on his proposal, just kind of outlining just I guess for the telcoin.org, and then I agree that there's no reason that we can't have. I mean, I think that we can all just pick our own email names. I don't see. Obviously, we're not going to be within reason, but I don't. Does anybody have any sort of input on that? They want to share as far as wrapping up the emails?
My only input is just ideally it's relatively professional if it's going to be sending emails out, and then at the same time we need to retain the benefits of privacy that people want, which means choosing what you share with whom.
I agree. So for just to use him as an example, if Steve wanted to use Crypto SteveO, I personally think that's within reason. But
I think that's fine. I don't see any reason why that would. If it was I don't know. I don't even want to say a word out loud that would be a bad one, but yeah, I think maybe that's just kind of touch and go. And if there's any of them that are kind of ridiculous, then we, say perhaps add it as an addendum to the proposal, or just talk to them and see if they're open to changing it to something more professional. But maybe we just see what comes in and,
yeah. All right. And then the last thing I guess is for the formality, then do we need to vote on that? Is that ultimately it needs to be voted on, or if because there's no money, it's not
Yeah, I just think from a process perspective, it's a great opportunity for us to get a proposal through as a community that we all agree with and that is going to move things forward. So yeah, let's definitely do the TIP vote for that proposal. And that'll be critical, I think. As far as we have a SquirTEL email though created already, or if we don't, we should.
Yes, I got that to him this afternoon. So
yeah.
Adam's got one, and then now it's just basically the formality that's getting the TIP up and then voting on it. So I'd like to do that as soon as possible. So I'll be in touch to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, let's get that proposal out this, in the next week or so, whenever it's ready. And does anyone disagree with that proposal? If so, please come up and tell us why. Right on. Well, there's 40 of us in here, so that's kind of nice. No one dissents. Okay, great. So what else do we have to cover here? Anything that any community members want to come and talk about, ask questions to the councils? Or should we go to closing remarks and next steps? Give, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever, people. Please raise your hand if you're in the audience and want to come up. All right. I think that's a sufficient waiting period. So, all right, we've covered some major things related to the exchange listing proposal that's big, the email proposal from Steve. We've covered Telcoin network updates. Congratulations to the team on that. Got some insight to the community related to budgetary items for the Telcoin network audits. And so there are a few different proposals that are in development that haven't been posted to the forum, a couple of proposals that are being replied to, and some that I think we can almost just take to the final stages. So yeah, I'm really excited about everything we're doing here, guys. It's fun meeting every 2 weeks too. I think it's a really great cadence. I was a little concerned at first that it was going to be too frequent, but I think given just the craziness of everyone's lives and the globality of us, and our dispersion or across the world and time zones and everything, really appreciate everyone joining and sharing. Yeah, really excited about next phases here with Telcoin Network, with TAN IP1, which we've drafted the functional proposal for that Leo is going to share in the TAN Council meet that starts in 1 hour from now. And so what that does, it's going to we're implementing the issuance rules in line with their original proposal that we had deferred to the TAN Council to initiate. And the rationale for that was we're Telcoin Holdings being the only application developer from the start. From a values perspective, we would prefer that the community approves any proposals that are going to empower us as the sole developer to start. So we didn't want to initiate that, and so now we have an opportunity to implement that. And really, what that does is unlock TEL issuance at the application layer for TEL stakers that are in the app, based off of their fees and their referred networks fees each week in their stake balance versus everyone else. And then for developers, it enables them to basically harvest issuance based off of their referred users' fees paid, or the referral fees paid each week. Tying those things together is really critical. Then their Telex exchange fees each week and their Telcoin network gas fees each week. So that's sort of the developer basis for earning TEL issuance. And we've basically come to the conclusion that the best way to propose this for now is to reduce the total TEL issuance for developers on a weekly basis based off of how many developers there are. So at the beginning, up to a total of 3 developers. So at the beginning, we cut the issuance for developers into thirds. And then once 2 developers join, there'll be 2/3 of issuance. And then as 3+ join, the full amount of issuance will be live for application developers. And so, yeah, I think I'm really excited to join that call in an hour and talk about a proposal that's going to empower the application layer, unlike the existing sort of disorganized systems out there, which have resulted in tens of thousands of tokens that are all on one network that could feasibly all be unified into one singular token and economy. So yeah, it's a really exciting proposal and in line with the vision that we initially set out of this vertical user-owned value chain for mobile blockchain services coordinated by mobile operators and every mobile user in the world. So really excited about next steps. Appreciate everybody's time. And if you're available, come join the meeting in an hour to talk about TAN issuance. So thank you, everyone. This video will be up tomorrow on YouTube. You can see our most recent council meets 1 and 2 there, along with any TAN and TELX council meets too. So thanks everyone for joining. I look forward to the next one. And yeah, at Telcoin Tau on Twitter, if you haven't, give it a follow. There should be some exciting information coming through there in the coming weeks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so